Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we have Fatimatu Abubakar, Her Excellency. She is the Minister of Communication from Ghana. She will be talking on gender and the law. Let's welcome her to do the talk, please.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Let me start by saying my portfolio is Deputy Minister for Information, Republic of Ghana, instead of Communication. As Doc rightly mentioned, my name is Fatimatu Abubakar. I am a lawyer by profession. I'm also an entrepreneur. I love to cook, so I turned my cooking into a business. So I own a restaurant and I also do other businesses. But currently, I am the Deputy Minister for Information in Ghana, and I'm also a Muslim. So I'm excited for this opportunity to have a conversation with the global community of WCC, and especially with you, Doc. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And you are from law background and working on information. How do you feel on these things? A law person working on information, especially in the time of this information era. We are using a lot, and there are new laws coming on using the web platform and new medias and all.
Thank you so much. That's a very important question. It is a question that even for those of us who are already working in the field, we take time to reflect on what the key issues are, and as the executive or policymakers, what relevant contributions we can make in the space. But, because we have different systems of governments globally, it is only proper that I speak to the case of Ghana and what I directly have the knowledge and expertise on. In the case of Ghana, we are quite privileged because the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, under Chapter 5 of the Constitution, guarantees fundamental human rights. And under Article 21, Clause 1 of the Constitution, the right to free media, freedom of speech, is guaranteed. So it makes it easier when the primary legal document of the country has it coded that everyone can express themselves. So in Ghana, if someone wants to open a media house, they don't necessarily require a license. If you want to open a newspaper in Ghana, you don't require any license. If it is radio or TV, because they have to distribute the spectrum, the frequency, that is when you may need the involvement of government to allocate spectrum and for you to pay the necessary charges. So our communication space or information space is fairly liberal. It's liberal, and people are able to express themselves in any way that they can. The other downside is the fact that, the liberalization comes with its own challenges, like misinformation and disinformation, and other key issues that have been addressed within the information space globally. But what we try as much as possible at our ministry to do is for us to put in place the necessary measures that will guarantee safety of journalists and media personnel. And on the other hand, we also try as much as possible to mobilize all the resources locally and globally so that we can organize capacity enhancement or training program for media personnel on ethics, professionalism, on legal issues, among others, and other technical areas. That being said, on a personal level, and as a Muslimah, in the context of our conversation, I want to say that, of course, you also have to set additional guiding principles that is not contradictory to the teachings of Islam, to the Quran, to Hadith, and to all the literature that the scholars of Islam are teaching us as guiding principles. So as much as possible, even though there is no censorship in the space, I try as much as possible to read, to be guided by what is permissible within Islam. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So what are the challenges in the working now as a Minister of Information?
There are quite enormous challenges, especially being a woman, being a wife and a mother. When you take up political roles, just like any corporate woman, you do not lose your primary responsibilities as either a mother or a spouse or a primary caregiver to your little ones. You don't lose that. You only add on the role that you pick within your corporate or political space to all the things that you have to do. And it also shows that of everything else, you need to learn as much as possible to multitask and to rest and to re-energize so that you can keep it going as long as possible, because sometimes you can get exhausted mentally, physically, because the demands are enormous. But I am guided by sometimes cutting maybe unnecessary social engagements, cutting unnecessary gossips and other engagements that I believe may not be beneficial to me in the instance, and to focus as much as possible on the things that matter: family, helping the community when I can, and also working very well within my role as Deputy Information Minister. So some of the challenges has to do with time and balance. You never have enough time in 24 hours. And we know we need to sleep, we need to pray, we need to do the very fundamental things that make us good Muslims. And we need to take care of the family. But you still have to squeeze and find maybe 12 to 13 hours out of that schedule to work. So it gets quite difficult, but Alhamdulillah, if you are conscious of who you are and the kind of responsibilities you have, I believe you will be able to do your best in the circumstance.
Yeah, earlier you were working at Student Union, National Students Union of Ghana. So how was working with the youth at the time? What was the experience of in the women genres and places at the time?
Yes, as a student leader from the University of Ghana and subsequently joining the national space as a potential student leader on the national stage, one thing I realized was that at that point in time in our lives, where the demography comprised mostly of young people, specifically, let's say between 18 and 25 years, people are still finding themselves, they are still making mistakes, trying things out, matters concerning career choices, matters concerning spousal choices, even the confidence of what field specifically do I want to work in. So what we try to do is to learn and also to share, to learn and also to share the knowledge and experiences that we have with other young people, just to give them the comfort that you are not alone. What you are going through, we are also going through the same thing. And people are comforted when they realize that they are not alone in whatever they are experiencing, their challenges that they are going through.
Yeah.
At some point, my line kept dropping. I don't know if you could hear me.
Yeah, I can hear. It's audible.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay, so what we do is to share our experiences with the young people so that those who do not have mentors, those who aspire to be like you, maybe they have seen you on TV, maybe they have taken interest in politics, but they don't have a starting point. They don't know the challenges. They don't know how to position themselves. These organized student platforms give us the opportunity to engage young people, to sit them down. If this is the field you have chosen, remember these are some of the blueprints. And if you're able to study hard, choose these particular topics, acquire these soft skills, then you'll be able to excel in the space, inshallah.
Yes, I'd like to know, how social media and informations and all used for this harmony and integration in the community, whether the government take an initiative for that or?
In fact, in recent years, as a government, I must say that we do most of our advocacy on social media because the African population is very young. We have about 70% less than 35 years old, below the age of 35. So it's one of the most youthful populations in the world. And if you realize the fact that most of these young people, they are not holding radio, walkie-talkie, no. They are not having the time to sit in the room watching TV 24/7, but they all have their phones. So how best can you reach them but for social media? So as a government, cumulatively for my ministry alone, cumulatively we have over maybe 2 million followers on our social handles. We try to engage through the traditional media, but most times we make sure we put our information, our material on social media so that we can meet more youthful audiences. So social media has come to stay. I believe the evolution of technology is such that if you don't take advantage of it and use it positively to benefit your community and society, other bad people will use it and they will take the attention of the people you want to reach. They will misinform them and they will not have any alternative source of information to verify, to know that this is the authentic information. So we are making sure we really have our foot in the door when it comes to social media so that we can put out as much as possible so many positive contents about government, about governance, about our policies, about government's intentions. We also use it for our rebuttals in terms of issuing press statements, newsletters, documentaries, among other things.
Yeah, how about the intercultural and also in the religious engagements nowadays in Ghana? Could you explain that?
It is the same. It is the same. If you come to Ghana now, the Islamic community, they have a lot of popular pages on social media. On Facebook alone, I can talk of Peace Dawa Media. They have Darul Islam. They have Ikra. A lot of social media pages where they build communities of young Muslims to have conversations, to share material for preaching, to share information about our Muslim communities, school, education, everything else. So I believe people have come to realize how important social media is, even for evangelism, to preach the word of God, to talk about, they just use it for almost everything that will positively impact the Muslim Ummah. And they do that all the time, even live sessions from some mosque, even for tafsir, among others. So they are really using social media in ways that are beneficial to our community.
Great. Let's come back to the law. How you feel the gender and the law, how, because nowadays the women are more into the public realms and all. Could you share your experience on that?
Yes, there are 3 key provisions within the Ghanaian constitution and within our legal space that has really impacted the subject matter we are talking about. First of all, has to do with Article 17 of the Ghanaian Constitution, the 4th Republican Constitution of Ghana. It has provisions on non-discrimination. So in Ghana, we have non-discrimination irrespective of your gender, your race, your religion, or creed. You are entitled to fundamental human rights in Ghana, which includes basic rights such as education, healthcare, civic and political rights, and more other advanced rights. So in our space, it doesn't matter. If you want to go to school as a woman, the constitutional provisions has made it say that you are entitled as of right to have that. If you seek healthcare, you are entitled. If you want to go into political leadership, you are entitled because of the non-discrimination provision in our constitution. That being said, you know, sometimes we have the laws put together, but our social and cultural environment also impacts our way of life and our thinking, said that in reality, not all the things that have been written in the law books will be realized to their full potential. So let me give you an example. In Ghana, we have the fundamental rights. As a woman, you can stand for political office, even if you want to be president. But the trends that we have in Ghana is said that more men win elections than women. And you can say that the choice of candidates, the choice in some communities, because we have several ethnic groups and multiple religious groups. So you look at the demography and realize that depending on the community, they will choose either to select a woman or not to select a woman. So in some constituencies, it is more likely to find women in politics, female leaders, in line with the constitution. There are other communities or ethnic backgrounds that you realize that it doesn't even matter. If you put up a woman, a female candidate, they are not likely to be successful. So those are some of the social cultural issues that have impacted the gender equity in the space when it comes to Ghanaian politics. And also, under our 1992 Constitution, the Article 78 of the Constitution provides that if a president wants to appoint ministers, he has to appoint majority of them from parliament, meaning they have to be elected members of parliament so that the president can appoint them as his ministers into his cabinet and what have you. Because of that requirement of selecting majority from parliament. And remember, I mentioned that it's not all communities that are embracing to women candidates and other challenges that women face in the space. So in Ghana, if you come to parliament, out of 275 MPs, you have at most 40 in recent years. The best showing, best performance is around 40. So let's say about 20%. So in terms of representation, you realize that the constitutional provision, which has to do with the choosing majority of ministers from parliament, has also negatively impacted the gender parity situation we have in Ghana. Because even if the president wants to appoint you as ministers, first of all, he has to choose majority from parliament, where you have mostly male MPs. So no matter how the dynamics are, you realize that you still have more male than female. So that has also has some impact in terms of gender and the law in the specific case of Ghana. I believe that Article 78 is one of the key provisions that gender advocates have really trumpeted that they need some form of reform or constitutional review on. That being said, I must acknowledge that in Ghana, we have gender parity in terms of basic education. It is because we have free basic education and free senior high school in Ghana. It is at the time of or at the point of tertiary that you begin to pay school fees. And that is also highly subsidized by government. So what happens is that ordinarily in Ghana, because of our cultural background, if there is a family that is a low-income family, they don't have a lot of money. Traditionally, they will say, let the boy go to school, higher education, let the girl help in the house because she will marry, a husband will take care of her, she will go and do other things. That used to be the thinking. But that has quickly changed because the family does not have to take that decision as to who should go to school. Government is paying for everybody from primary, junior high school to high school. And also at the basic level, there are additional government subsidies like school feeding programs. So basic school children, when they go to school, they get free lunch. So because of that feeding program, if you will stay in the house and there is no food in the household, but if you go to school and get free lunch, then of course, people are motivated to send their kids to school because they get to eat and they get to learn and the parents don't have to worry about the bill. So that has really impacted the gender space in Ghana to the extent that we have full gender parity. And generally at the basic level, we have one of the highest enrollment rate, which I believe currently is more than 96%.
Yeah, that's great, especially the government support for this education, especially free education and the food at schools, they really encourage the people to come and learn. So you were you studied psychology, then language, then law, now information, alien communication, How was the women's space in these areas?
In fact, at the time, for instance, in my case, my community, which is a predominantly Muslim community called Moshizongo, at the time that I went to the law school or the law faculty in the year 2015, there was no lawyer in my community. Among 22,000 people, I didn't know any lawyer. Nobody had been to the law school. And we had a lot of educated people, maybe in medicine, in nursing, in banking, but in public service. But there are some traditional misconception about legal education in Ghana. I don't know if that also applies in your situation, but the notion, the misconception that lawyers are liars, that lawyers will not go to Jannah, that when they die, they bury them with their face down. And, I'm laughing because it gets ridiculous as you go along. So people are really discouraged to go into legal education. So I am the curious cat. So I was like, why don't we have any lawyer in our Muslim community? But anytime there is a crime, our people feel that maybe they don't receive the best end of justice, lack of legal representation or inadequate legal representation. We don't look at that aspect. That you say you won't train lawyers for religious considerations. But when people are alleged to have committed crimes in our Muslim communities, they are sent to the police station and then to the courts. And then having a Muslim lawyer within the midst will understand your social, cultural background and other dynamics that have informed who you are. So I believe in any field, if it is legal and moral and permissible in Islam to acquire knowledge, it is important that we spread our wings and have representation, just so that we can now become the guides or the consultants or to help our communities get better. So I was just curious to go into legal education because of some of these considerations. And Alhamdulillah, after I left the law school, after I was called to the Ghana Bar, I believe a lot more people were motivated, and recently one other brother was called to the bar this year. And I know more people are on the way because the glass ceiling has been broken. People feel, okay, if she studied law, she's still a practicing Muslim. We haven't seen any changes. Law has not, the knowledge has not changed anything. Then parents are more comfortable to allow their kids to go in that space. But generally, I believe our communities are changing. More people are embracing education. But Doc, let me remind you that even as we embrace Western education, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that our kids still have to get the most of Islamic education. They need to learn to recite the Quran. They need to learn the Hadith. They need to know much about our prophets. Their core foundation should be solid so that they have confidence in themselves. They have no doubt. They have no lingering thoughts about who they are. So far as Islam is concerned, so that any other secular knowledge or education they are seeking does not come to shake their core or create doubt of a sort. So we try to create the balance. In Ghana, most kids go to school for secular education Monday to Friday, and then Saturdays and Sundays they go to the masjid and go to learn their Quranic recitation. And that has been the norm for most of us in the Muslim communities.
Yeah, great. As you mentioned, the concern of going law school, it was there in all communities. Now I think they all realize, and most of them are in the law field. We have a lot of judges and lawyers around the world now. And when it comes to the indigenous communities in Ghana, you were talking about different sects and different kind of communities over there. Could you tell or explain to the viewers, how their indigenous cultures integrated to Islam and which kind of indigenous old tradition they are carrying in Islamic atmosphere over there?
The Ghana situation is quite similar to the whole of West Africa. If you look at the demographics, for instance, in Nigeria, the Muslim population is quite concentrated in northern Nigeria. It is the same for Ghana. If you go to Ghana, the Muslim population is also concentrated in mostly the northern part of Ghana. And it is because, beyond the artificial borders that were created by colonization, the cultural dynamics, the ethnic dynamics are mostly the same. And if you go to most part of northern Ghana, you will see the impact of northern Nigerian culture, the Hausa language, which is predominantly spoken in the whole of West Africa, among others. You also see that migration has also played a very important role when it comes to the spread of Islam along the West African coastal communities, especially in our capital city, Accra. You have what we call the Zango communities, which are predominantly settler communities of other West African nationals. But of course, now a lot of Ghanaians have also lived and settled in those communities, so we are mixed. But the foundation of those communities are mostly due to migration from Niger, from Mali, from Nigeria, from Benin, from Togo, and other neighboring countries. And these communities are predominantly Muslim communities. So understandably, migration across West Africa has played a very important role in the spread of Islam. And we share cultures. And you enter most of Ghanaian communities and you'll be confused as how cosmopolitan our communities are. That even the languages that are spoken in Ghana, we have about 46 to 47 tribes in Ghana. But if you look at the language map of Ghana, it is more than 56 languages spoken. And for a country of approximately about 32 million people, you realize that that's a lot of languages spoken within our space. But I must say that migration has played a very important role in that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much spending time on us, especially giving a very good idea on gender, law, and communities in Ghana, especially the education role, the women. So I think this information will help us, especially the community, to know more about your atmosphere and your communities over there. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we'll have more opportunities in the future together.
I was grateful, Dr. Abbas. Thank you so much for having me. Assalamu
Thank
alaikum.
you. Wa alaikum assalam.